I think. But I want to talk about some random topics I just happen to find as I'm browsing, perusing the internet. I want to transition the idea of this podcast more into the behind the scenes. Because if you've been following my journey, you've probably noticed that the YouTube channel is getting a lot of my attention right now. So I want to use this as. But yes, since we're talking about giving inside scoops, forgive me, I'm a little nervous, but if you're watching the visual, you'll probably see these books on my table here. These are some projects I've been working on for this final drafts that have become these hard copies you see here. I'll probably say for the last 2-3 months, but the idea of making a journal, man, I've been trying to do that for several years, man, on and off, man. But this is the beauty of the podcast, right? Let me just relax and get into it, man. Let this be a little intimate setting, man, and tell you about my vision. I remember way back when I was younger. That's crazy to say right now. I don't really think I'm that old. I just wanted to say that, but still. When I was younger, working for the Harlem Children's Zone, young professional in my, I think, mid to late 20s, and we have calendars on our phone and email and stuff and all those things. And even before that, working as a banker, I've always been a person that I've loved having a physical document that I can write my stuff into. Like, that means the most to me. An agenda book. Which I'll talk about that at some point, right? An agenda book. And I believe I'm going to give credit to when I moved from Queens to Long Island into the Longwood School District. That was given to me. I believe it started in 6th grade. I'm almost positive it started in 6th grade. Although in elementary school, we had your composition book that you probably would have to write your homework in and stuff. If you got in trouble, your teacher might write a note in it and your parents got to sign it. You know what I'm saying? And to create some type of a correspondence back and forth. But the agenda book, I believe, was introduced to me in 6th grade. And the basic concept of an agenda book is, when you're in school at least, every period that you have a class, you take down notes of any assignments, because typically an agenda book is going to consist of your month, a 30-day calendar that gives you an outlook of what's happening for the month, and then your weekly pages, which will usually break down the days, or it might be more detailed where you have just days broken down by hours. Since my agenda book was formatted for school, it would be weeks, and every week would have days with periods. All right. I believe I had 8 periods, but I don't know. I feel like somehow I don't know. It might have been 8 to 4 boxes on the thing. And basically, forgive me, guys, we're talking about 1990 something. All right. I can't necessarily remember that stuff with accuracy. And I don't have my original agenda book accessible at this moment to be accurate. So if you happen to go to Longwood Middle School in the middle to late 90s and you remember an agenda book, please comment on this video if you know accurately how that book looks so that we can get that correctly. All right. This will be on YouTube as well as on, of course, wherever my podcast is streamed. But back to the story. A shady plug, right? But back to the story. The idea is that whenever class that you have assignments in, you write down your assignments, your homework. That's what you write down daily. If you have assignments that you have to look forward to, like projects, you would write the due dates for those in advance, so that as you're going through your calendar, you understand what's coming forward, right? Because if you're really forward thinking, we always look and plan life 30, 60, 90 days ahead. So that gives us a reminder. Of course, in school as young as middle school and elementary school, you're typically not going to have projects that far off because you're probably going to be going to school on a quarterly basis, and that's about 90 days at best. But anyway, to get to the point, that mindset was always just me. And when you go to college, the same thing, right? I would advance to getting my own little portfolios. Actually, no, I'm tripping. I went to Johnson & Wales, and Johnson & Wales branded themselves as the professional university, where you not only got your major, but they helped you transition to becoming a professional. So we had this portfolio that already gave us pretty much the template for this very document that I'm talking about, which also is probably what inspired me for this. So I say that to say I've always, all throughout my life, although we've had technology that's given us a lot of ability to organize and stay on top of things, I am used to the analog paper and pencil or in document way of physically writing down and organizing my time. And there are a lot of studies that show that when you do that, that also helps you recall and recite data. Not for nothing, might be worthwhile to check out if you're having a hard time keeping track of things. I know a lot of us sometimes seem to forget. That might help out. I'm just saying there's science behind that. But anyway, if you guys don't know, I'm also an adjunct communications professor. And I've had the pleasure of teaching high school students that are taking early college access programming. So I've had the great opportunity of working with 10th graders, 11th and 11th graders, not even seniors. And what's really dope about that is you get to see the growth. Because remember, if you've not seen some of my past content, you may not know, but I graduated high school in 2004. We're in 2025. So seeing students in high school firsthand, 20 years later, I believe is like such a treat in itself. And when I'm treating itself, I feel like if I wasn't doing it, I would probably almost pay to, like, how can I simulate or get that real experience? Not pay, but volunteer, you know what I'm saying? Which is still, if you value your time, I would say payment anyway, but that's another episode. But nonetheless, it's been a great opportunity. But one thing that I noticed is, I always tell them, I noticed they have such a grasp for this new technology, the TikToks, the memes and all this. But when it comes to a lot of simple tasks, sometimes there's quite a struggle. And also I find like the basic essential systems and ways in which we, program and do things, I find a lot of that to be lacking too. And sometimes it's not even their fault. Sometimes, and I think this is primarily for the post-COVID children, with us transitioning so much to doing school and work on devices versus traditional ways where it was pen and paper. Sometimes these devices aren't the best, right? I'm sorry. I believe an Apple computer, if you want to see somebody be productive on a computer and not, all around, invest in one of these. They last for years, I can't stop. I can't stop enough. And they're not giving me anything further. And I really hope someday with the work that I'm doing that perhaps that can change. But seriously, and kids get like these basic computers, and I always go back to it. Education is so essential, and how we develop our children's education is so essential to the people that they become. And if we're giving them the bare essentials to their education, what's that really saying? Like, why don't would it really cost that much more to give them top tier essentials to work with if we believe education is that important? We do it in other areas. But this is not an episode about that. But anyway, I was talking with a colleague one day, and I was saying, honestly, I really wish we could go back to just pen and paper, or even if we could teach in a way where you could do either or, right? And so that was the inspiration behind me creating my Always Forward agenda book. All right. This is a proof still, so I'm not fully sure if I want to go with it still, but essentially it's just basic pages. Because like I said, the way the students are going to school nowadays, I don't even know how many peers they may have or classes, but basically the idea is that a vision board for, if you invested in an agenda book in this day and age, you clearly are thinking something. So before you start using this book, let's get a vision for what your mind's on. Where you trying to go with this? What was the point of this, right? Share some prompts here to help you get that thing going, right? So that you can be intentional when using this. And like I said, a blank calendar. This one is actually going to be, this is a proof though, so I'm not sure if I'm going to make the original like this as well, the one that goes for sale, but the first month is going to be a blank, depending on when you start, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's 30 days for you to figure out what that looks like, your first 30 days, okay? So we'll call this goal setting. All right. Make some SMART goals here to get yourself started, and if you got a really good foundation to continue on. And then we got what I love to have, the mindfulness chapter, you know what I'm saying? Because I believe on a regular basis, you need to like sometimes just check yourself and see where you at. Like I tell people all the time, I recommend doing this as an exercise, like waking up early in the morning, real early, like 4:30. I'm bold. Sometimes I would say, 4:30 is good, or 5. Keep everything off. Don't touch that phone. Don't cut no lights on, and just think about what's on your mind and listen to it. And if you're bold enough, write some of those thoughts down. That's being mindful. That's mindfulness. Whatever was talking to you at that time, that's mindfulness, all right? So you write some of these things down, okay? There's some real cool prompts here. I'm not going to spoil it right now, but of course, we're going to talk about self-care, nutrition, fitness, but I won't get too much more into it because there's more than that, trust and believe, okay? But then we go from there, it's basically open format with the days of the week. I got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I start on Monday because I feel like even though Sunday is the start of the week, Monday is the start of the business week. All right. And it's basically an open format space. It's blank. The reason why is because depending on how you write your notes or how your mind thinks, I gave you space to do that. Okay. And I also have some things on the side. I just think I want to encourage you always. So I got something to be grateful for, because regardless how good or bad your day is, there's still something to be grateful for, especially if you're alive. All right. So remember that. Because if you're alive, that means you're still in the fight. You know what I'm saying? You might have got beat up, but hey, be grateful that I didn't get knocked out. You know what I'm saying? I'm actually still on my feet and I get to go out another round. It might be the last round, but hey, I shouldn't even be here. You know what I'm saying? So that's something to be grateful for. You know what I mean? That's an example, I guess, worst case scenario if I got to do that. And then intentions, because what are your intentions now? My intention is to go out there, and clearly the only way I can win this thing is I got to knock them out. So my intention is to go do just that. And summon all the power and training and participation and preparation I've had for this moment and execute. And hopefully that execution delivers the victory that I believe I'm prepared for. That's an example of intentions. All right. And so you have those columns there, and that's for your whole week. All right. At the end of the week, you have a weekly review, some circles. You can circle maybe a little mind check on how good your week went for yourself. All right. That's one thing you can do. You can write down some achievements, and there's space for your thoughts. And again, it's a little open format so that you can play with that as you will, rather than be too boxed in. Okay. One of the things I'm thinking of doing for the first 100 copies with your copy, thinking of offering a free hour tutorial where we can get on the Zoom together and just walk you through how you can make this work for yourself. I don't know if that's something I'm still thinking about. If you happen to see this podcast, comment if you think that's a dope idea for business, and not only for business, but really more for support. You know what I mean? Because how many times do we go out, we buy these cool products with all these great prompts and ideas, and it sounds good, but it's overwhelming when you get it, because what are you doing? And honestly, whenever anything has prompts or anything's guided or written, it's guided based on someone else's thought. Again, the ability to be able to connect with somebody that created this and is willing to sit down and tell you how to use it, isn't that a blessing? All right. I don't know. That's an idea I'm thinking. All right. But again, this is a basic agenda book. Regardless, this is going to be the title. As you can see, I have the chess pieces fixed in with the tunnel, with a road going to a tunnel. And the reason why I have both of those on there in the cover is because one of the big inspirations for this movement I'm doing is my belief in that chess is a great game that kind of symbolizes strategies and what you need to be symbolically moving through life. You know what I'm saying? And life is a journey. That's why I signify with a tunnel. And you'll get to your destination. That's why that tunnel glows, especially when you got a plan and you need an agenda book to plan. So if that's the thinking then, all right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And also, on the back, you'll see a logo fixated with some terms there. So this is actually kind of dope. So first of all, I want to pay homage to what this image is, even the inspiration came from. I'm also a school counselor, a licensed school counselor at that, right? So as a licensed school counselor, I'm familiar with a company called ASCA, with organization ASCA actually, all right? ASCA is the American School Counselor Association. And it's basically I don't want to say the governing body, but it's basically how school counselors, how we all organize and work in schools, basically. And their little bit would be define, manage, assess, and deliver, okay? And I basically took an inspiration from that and thought about, because I love the way ASCA interfaces with schools, and I felt that as a mentor, that's the way I want to work with mentees, and that way is outside of schools, and potentially. And I'll tell you a little bit about what the ASCA logo means. When they say define, that's basically how they define student standards as well as their professional standards. And what that says is they defined the standards for how students are supported in the schools, which is always student first. School counselors are student centered. That's why they don't do discipline. All right. But professional standards is how we hold ourselves to the highest standard so that we can make sure we're providing the best services in the school. And manage is going to be program focused as well as program planning. All right. In order to be effective in the school, as a school counselor, there's a lot of on the day work and things that you got to do to respond to. Crises are always happening on all types of scales from 1 to 10. That means that in order to be effective is do the things that we have to do to support the school as a system. A lot of much stuff has to be planned ahead of time. All right. But then there's always program focus. And that's going to be based on our school population, which comes to the next point, which is assess, which is at the top of what they do. A program assessment, as well as school council assessment and appraisal, which means we assess ourselves and make sure that we are the proper value. All right. But also program assessment and making sure that whatever program we've implemented is going to be servicing our population best. All right. But then you continue on to deliver. And what do? We deliver student service directly as well as student services indirectly, which could be from workshops, could be speaking engagements, et cetera, et cetera. All right. But I took from that and I derived the standards that I wanted for justified mentoring. And that is to distinguish, number one, mentee standards, what we believe a successful young man should look like, that we would like to represent as someone that we want to support and see go forward. And we believe that based on this image, they'll have the greatest success they can have possible with their potential. And as well as mentor standards, what we can do to make sure that we're putting the best image forward so that we can be successful and helping motivate and inspire young men to put their best foot forward. And then from there, we go to steward, which is, again, our mentoring program focus, which is going to be mentoring support. But we discern that program development and as well as our mentoring development. And by discern, the program development is going to be based on the mentees that we're working with. The same way as a school counselor is going to assess their program based on the school population that they're working with. I can't stand these lights. Oh my goodness. But then we're going to be a little raw here. That's the point of the podcast. All right. So that's cool. We don't have to take that out. All right. So please don't edit that. That's fine. All right. And then there's convey, which is what we offer at Just Inspire, which is going to be direct mentoring. All right. Which could be in person as well as hybrid or virtual. All right. Indirect mentoring, which could be, I believe, listening to this podcast, watching the content that I put up on YouTube. Even if you follow me at Counselor Tucker on X or Twitter, or listen to my videos on Instagram at Just Inspire Mentoring. All that is indirect mentoring, because it's still having the same impact, which is going to be hoping, molding, and planting seeds that hopefully will grow into something fruitful later for you in life. And of course, exposure, the trips that I'm trying to do. We're going to do something for this Malcolm X 100th birthday in 9 days. All right. And that's basically the story behind that sign. And so please look forward to this. This is a hardcover. I'm also going to have a soft cover because I want to make it economical. And this will be a little bit more like a limited edition item. That I think is a final, but there's still just some things I'm still thinking about. But this next one, man. So let me read to you the back of it. This isn't just a journal, it's a gentleman's blueprint. A gentleman's manual to purpose, power, and presence is a 12-chapter guided journey for the man who's ready to live with more discipline, dignity, and direction. Blending storytelling, structured reflection, and gentleman-inspired design, this book invites you to define your values, assess your habits, steward your responsibilities, and deliver your legacy, all in real time. Created by Mr. Justin H. Tucker, a scholar, educator, and mentor, known for his transformative work in SEL, mental health, and the development of young men, this journal offers timeless wisdom, modern mindset tools, and space to show down and realign. Inside, you'll find elevated self-work rooted in purpose and poise, personal stories that challenge and inspire, luxury practices to sharpen your presence, thought-provoking prompts, and reflection exercises. and 12 blank 30-day calendars to track your journey. Whether you're redefining your focus, reclaiming your discipline, or realigning with your higher self, this journal will meet you where you are and lead you to where you're meant to be. Because legacy isn't built later, it's lived now. So I'm really looking forward to this. I had to make some edits in the inside, as well as, again, it's not my book. I'll tell you some of the first things I did. I also had to make changes to the cover. I took my name off of it. I also took my name off the spine. I left that blank because it's your book. It's a journal. It's a guided journal. As I said earlier, as I think for started this whole rant, when I was working with the Harlem Children's Zone, I wanted to fast forward it to, I wanted to be more professional again, and I'm not to be more professional, excuse me. I wanted to be more organized. And I didn't just want to use like apps and stuff. I wanted to go back to writing things down. So I went back to getting a journal. But in getting familiar with like all the cool stuff on Amazon and such, I saw that there were some really cool opportunities with these guided journals. And I've always been inspired by one. And I just felt like with me having a mentoring company, I wanted to create something that somebody maybe that can't get to me personally can still have a blueprint that simulates what working with me would be. So in this journal, there are guided chapters that kind of inspire the kind of conversation I will hope to have with you over 12 months. And for young men that work with me directly, this would be a gift that I give to them as part of the mentoring package for my services. So that's all something I'm working on putting together. I wish I had one of my lapel pins, but I will get one of those later. And maybe we can talk about that on another episode too. Yeah, like you said, yeah, a lot of things were in the cooker, but that's cool, and that's life. But let me take a break real quick, and we'll come right back. Also, since I have something else I want to talk about, I'm working on doing another little mini documentary. By the time you hear this, hopefully I'll have it up already. But I did a little documentary on Clarks. Reason why I did that was, funny enough, I was going to the doctor. I'm a veteran for Army National Guard, financed to fight. I got really bad feet, man. It made it freaking sucks, man, sometimes. And when you go to doctors, they always tell you it's because of this. But the reality is, it didn't start until I went to the military. I used to wear sneakers, all types of stuff. And now, the only time I find relief is basically when I wear Wallabies. And I was talking with the guy about it, and I didn't realize it, but Clarks has been around since 1825, which is pretty amazing, 200 years. And they've been operating in America since 1950. Yep. And Wallabies have been around since 1968. Pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? Look out for that content. That's coming cool. That's coming soon. I also have started dropping content that kind of rates and starts to explore my chest and life paradox theology. Look for that as well. But hey, something else I'm working on. Did you guys know that there was once a black-owned automobile manufacturer? All right. C.R. Patterson and Sons, founded by Charles Richard Patterson and his son, Frederick Patterson. All right. They created Patterson Greenfield Automobile, a luxury car, in 1915. All right. I think it's important that we know that the company was founded by Charles Richard Patterson, a former slave, and later managed by his son, Frederick Patterson, who was the first and only black-owned automobile manufacturer in the United States. Could you imagine if that would have kept going? Oh man, they've been a really big inspiration for me story-wise in terms of, man, just imagine an alternate universe, man, like MCU-wise, where like these great things just continue on. But I've been playing with some of the old flyers and like logos and stuff I've seen for a little merch line that I want to do that kind of supports the little mini documentary I want to do about them. When I say mini, like maybe 5 to 10 minutes. But I think it's really cool to note, man, like at one point in time, we really were so independent. And I think the reason why I bring this up is because when I talked about me having an agenda book and how much more I felt like rigorous I was as a student with my limited technology, but still capability more ahead, or I guess you say more advanced, as to we look commonly at youth today. They have so much technology, but their prowess sometimes you question, but you only question it as you're looking at people that didn't have as much. And I was begging the same thing today. Like, we don't have anybody making black automobiles, right? But at one point in time where we were under so much scrutiny, we still utilize and thrive by creating our own. And I always say, I'm not trying to get on a soapbox about segregation or any of those sort of things. I actually believe that when all social groups are thriving and creating their own little economic societies within each other, we then have a much more beautiful rainbow that's robust with beautiful colors for everyone to explore. Think about how when you go to certain parts of the country, you look forward to going to, let's say, the Chinatown or the markets in certain parts. Philly's got that market, right? That, you know what I'm saying? All these types of different products that are unique to cultures, the Amish market, all this stuff unique to that culture, but it makes it good. You know what I'm saying? That's just something that's really been inspired me in terms of work. And like I said, really trying to do more with this mentoring company. Again, you don't just need another motivational speech. You need some intentional talk. And that's what Just Inspired Mentoring is all about. And why a proven system is proven because I lived it. That's how I know it's proven. So when I'm talking about a structured approach that transforms potential, I'm talking about a structured approach because I understand the structure needed. I'm giving you the skills from my own experience, but I'm also only applying it based on what you're telling me you need. This is guided based on what you need. This is for you, Bob. This is for you by us. All right? Daily habits, weekly checkpoints that create a lasting change. All right? So it's not just good morning, good afternoon, following up, reminders. Not being aggressive, but as you need, as you tell me you need. All right? Dedicated mentorship, working directly with somebody, in person, as well as hybrid, as well as exposureships that help change both of our lives for the better, and building a robust community of other people seeking that same type of mentorship. That's what we're doing.